The next speaker is Dr. Prabjot Channa from Rhode Island, and she'll be speaking on positive pressure and PK.
Hi,
Dr.
good morning,
Prabjot.
everybody. Hi, good morning, everybody. Switching gears from something advanced to something more basic, I'd like to thank the scientific committee for inviting me. Lamellar keratoplasty has made corneal transplantation safer. Endothelial keratoplasty is currently the most common keratoplasty procedure done in the United States. Despite this rapid growth of selective lamellar keratoplasty, PK is still a very essential procedure for full thickness corneal diseases. In India, penetrating keratoplasty is the most performed transplantation procedure. But the Eye Bank Association of America, the annual number for PK, DSEC, and DMEC were essentially the same for the year 2022. In India, the most common indication for penetrating keratoplasty was corneal ulcer, followed by corneal scars and failed grafts. We all have experienced positive pressure. It is an uncommon but serious complication, and the signs depend on the severity of positive pressure, which include, as we all know, a shallow anterior chamber often resistant to reformation, repeated iris prolapse resulting in lens expulsion. There's a forward bulging of the posterior capsule, often with rupture leading to vitreous loss and the dreaded expulsive hemorrhage. The incident rate is reported to be as low as 3.6% to something as high as 40 to 50%. We are all familiar with the ocular risk factors, which include iris pathology, a shallow anterior chamber, patients who have low scleral rigidity, patients with acute angle closure or chronic glaucoma, or short axial length, and high myopia. Acute hypotony sets the stage for positive vitreous pressure. You have an open anterior segment which leads to aqueous loss and resultant hypotony, which leads to elevated vitreous pressure, creating a pressure gradient between the vitreous cavity and the open anterior chamber, which in turn leads to elevated pressure, causing a loop, leading to prolonged surgery, prolonged hypotony, choroidal effusion, and choroidal hemorrhage. To reduce the risk of positive pressure, we need to minimize the degree and duration of hypotony during the surgery, minimize a sudden drop in intraocular pressure, which you can achieve this preoperatively by IOP reduction using topical and systemic medications, recognize and control risk factors such as hypertension, congestive heart failure, and COPD. Preventing external gope compression is very important. Optimize echinacea. If you're using general anesthesia, it should be deep and or with systemic muscle paralysis using non-depolarizing agents. If you give an intraorbital block, minimize the volume to prevent excessive orbital pressure. Add hyaluronidase to facilitate anesthesia spread. A gentle ocular massage or compression also helps anesthetic diffusion and softens the eye through increased aqueous outflow. Position the patient in a reverse Trendelenburg to reduce orbital and choroidal venous congestion. Make sure the eyelid and the speculum does not press the globe. If squeezing, use an eyelid block. And scleral support using a Floringa ring is really helpful. It's important to identify surgical approaches that can minimize intraoperative complications, thus ensuring donor tissue preservation. Recognize early the signs of positive pressure, and quickly reassess the situation and cause, if any, and simultaneously prepare for rapid wound closure. If the situation gets progressive and vitreous presents, digital ocular tamponade may help useful. Price described the graft over host technique in 1998, wherein the graft is sutured across a trifine host cornea, which maintains a formed anterior chamber and avoids the intraoperative complications. This is an effective procedure. I have used it in the presence of posterior pressure. In their series, there was no primary or secondary graft failure reported in the 33 eyes that underwent this technique. I could not get a video, neither from Dr. Price or neither did I have one. So I took a YouTube clip. This is in a pediatric eye showing a recipient cornea that is trephined and sutured. A copious amount of viscoelastic is then placed on the recipient bed. The donor is laid over this and sutured in 3 quadrants, and just before you close the last quadrant, the recipient cornea is removed from underneath and the eye is closed, maintaining anterior chamber throughout. A modification of this was described by De Caris, wherein the donor graft is anchored over a partially trefined recipient cornea, which is placed with cardinal sutures, and donor is sutured using continuous sutures as each recipient quadrant is incised. The anterior chamber is thus kept stable. 8 of the 220 eyes of standard penetrating keratoplasty were operated by this technique, and none were reported to have primary graft failure. A modification of this was described by Chen et al. To secure the anterior chamber in penetrating keratoplasty. This was inspired by DALK, which stabilizes the penetrating keratoplasty procedure as the anterior chamber is maintained throughout and reduces the disadvantages associated with an open sky technique. Factora, which also described a similar approach, the host cornea is incised incompletely and remains attached at the 6 o'clock and 12 o'clock positions. And the host cornea is then slit from beneath the donor cornea after the initial cardinal sutures are placed. Managing posterior pressure during pseudophakic keratoplasty can be challenging. McCartney and all described a limbal skewer technique in pseudophakic eyes, wherein a 2.5 centimeter 27 gauge disposable needle is passed limbus to limbus. The skewer stabilizes the IOL and maintains the anterior chamber depth while suturing the donor tissue. You do need an assistance to tamponade and hold the IOL back. It's a little difficult technique. Simcoe first described a triangular retaining suture positioned over the pupil and IOL to prevent IOL touch to the corneal endothelium in penetrating keratoplasty. And Chung and al. Described a modification of this technique wherein quadrangular mattress sutures can be placed before or after trephination in the presence of posterior pressure. The mattress sutures are placed limbus to limbus. A second mattress suture is placed in the opposite meridian for added support, thus forming a basket. This normalizes the lens iris complex, and in a retrospective review of 15 PK eyes, successful surgery was achieved in all cases with no primary graft failure. Co-vitrectomy and vitreous aspiration preceding triple procedures have been described to lower positive pressure. In both the above papers, they had control groups and found better success rate of IOL implantation in high-risk triple procedures in patients that underwent a co-vitrectomy than in those that did not. In conclusion, posterior pressure can present a stressful and challenging situation. Be expeditious in your technique. Modify your technique to minimize intraoperative complications. Use a generous amount of OVD to ensure donor tissue is preserved. And theoretically, the risk of primary graft failure using these techniques is outweighed by the risk of trauma to ocular tissues and vision loss in the presence of posterior pressure. Thank you.
Thank you. So identifying risk factors and then taking care of the positive pressure is very important. So based on the risk factors, probably one can take a call and decide which technique one has to use.
I think the graft actually all of them basically work on maintaining the chamber. So if you make an incision and you notice iris prolapsing, I would put sutures and then put a copious amount of viscoelastic and just try to maintain the chamber. And I think it works pretty well rather than having everything on your face.